Introduction, Elaine. This was so much fun. Well, for a while. My life was crap. I didn't like being a mom. I didn't like the job I got instead. I was bored with my husband. My girlfriends were happy in their unhappiness. However, I needed something different. The more wild members of my work group started having bachelorette parties on Wednesdays. What a waste of time. Drinking and dancing with the same losers we were supposed to be escaping from. One night I walked away from the bar we were visiting and found a group of 5 guys and 2 women huddled together at the entrance to the alley next to the bar. They were looking at me with outright paranoia. I laughed at them and told them they were as boring as the group inside. One of them, Henry Martin, became interested. He separated himself from the group and we started talking. He offered me a green pill, a capsule, I think is a more accurate term. I asked what it was. He laughed at me and said I was as boring as the people inside. He drove me home on time and promised to meet me for lunch the next day. My problem was that my ideas of what was right and wrong were skewed. I was looking for something new, a little dark adventure. Henry didn't need to drive me to severe addiction. I was looking for the evil he was pushing. Henry was delighted. He didn't need to create some low-class whore that was only worth a few dollars more than her addiction. I was making him a nice profit. It allowed me to stay in my routine and enjoy myself enough to make it bearable. Well, until our nosy neighbor across the street suspected something wrong and told Don. I got caught. Well, sort of. Don thought I was messing with him. If only he knew. Well, that's wishful thinking, and it didn't help me or my story. Next chapter. Where am I? You're at the county hospital, Miss Wilson. We almost lost you. From what I hear, your son found you unconscious and called 911. Oh no! Where are the boys now? Oh, wait a minute. What time is it now? What night is it? It's Tuesday night, ma'am. You've been here since Saturday. Tuesday, the 12th? My divorce was finalized today. I wonder if that's what caused... The nurse looked at me. Miss Wilson, what were you doing on Saturday, the 9th? Wow, I have no idea. I don't remember anything after the bachelorette party on Wednesday. Sister, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I don't remember Saturday, Thursday, or Friday for that matter. I stared straight in front of me. I don't know if she was expecting the conversation to continue, but I was trying to find the missing days. She went where nurses go, and a few minutes later another woman walked in. Miss Wilson, my name is Dr. Adams. I'm the attending physician on your case. How are you feeling? Confused. I woke up and the last day I remember was Wednesday. I discovered that I was placed here on Saturday. I cannot reconstruct in my memory the time from the time I went to work on Wednesday until now. Temporary memory loss is not that rare. It is usually associated with trauma. In this case, I suspect what we call psychogenic amnesia. It's caused by some sort of emotional trauma. So we need to find out what you did that brought you here. I hesitated for 5 or 6 milliseconds. She didn't need to know anything about this. I knew that the boys had been staying at Don's last week. I was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with the loneliness. I had a night out with Henry on Wednesday. That I couldn't remember explained the level of my debauchery, not that there might be an alternative reason. Today is the final divorce. I was dreading it. I must have overdone it. I'm glad I'm back now. However, there are ants crawling all over me. Overdoing it is not what I would say, Miss Wilson. You are going through withdrawal now. We're administering other drugs now so your withdrawal won't be too severe. When am I getting out of here? I have 2 little boys at home. I had the nurse contact Mr. Don Wilson. I understand he is your ex-husband. Your boys have been staying with him for the past few days. You have all the signs of serious addiction. I recommend that you spend some time in a rehab center before returning home. He's coming to take care of me? As soon as I finished the thought, my eyes filled with tears. How could he take care of me after everything I'd done? Try to calm down. Mr. Wilson will be here soon. How soon? I must be out of my mind. Don't worry about how you look. You have more important things to do right now. Decisions need to be made about your recovery. She gave me a stern look and left the room. Decisions? What decisions? But most importantly, I need to get cleaned up. My dear man is coming to help me, and I need to look my best. I found the call button and started pressing it, as if the harder it was pressed, the faster the nurse would arrive. My thumb was just starting to tremble when she appeared. Nurse, I need a hairbrush and a mirror. My love is coming now. The nurse looked awkward, like she was about to correct something I said. But after a short pause, she said, Let's see what I can find. I just talked to Mr. Wilson. He'll be here in about 30 minutes. The mirror startled me. If I hadn't held it in front of my face, I would have asked who the pale, sickly man was. I only had a few minutes, so I did the best I could. I'll apologize when he gets here. Next chapter. Oh, Dawn, you look so good. This is just awful. I can't believe that after everything I've done, you still care about me. Hey, slow down, Elaine. Why not Laney? You've always called me Laney. Please calm down. This may not be what you expected. Our divorce was final today. Do you remember that? Well, of course. And yet here you are. Elaine, I'm here because our 10-year-old son called me and reported in a frenzy, Mom's dead. I looked at him. There was no warmth or concern in his eyes, just a good man standing at a bedside whore trying to figure out what to do. Oh, I knew the frustration was there. I'm so sorry, what have I done? I started crying again. The image of Henry yelling at me appeared for a moment and then disappeared. Don started to speak, but I held up my hand and he stopped. Don, let me gather my thoughts for a second, but tell me what I can do or what you want to do. Now is not the time to wallow in your shit. Pardon the expression. Thank God, he smiled broadly. Elaine, I haven't heard anything intelligible from you in a long time. I hope this means you're on the road to recovery. Recovery is exactly what I came to talk to you about. It's time to pull your head out of your ass, come home and start being a wife and mother. Oh, that's not true. The mother I'm supposed to be. Elaine, I dropped the boys off Saturday at noon, just like we agreed. 4 hours later, our 10-year-old son called. You're in the hospital. I'm told you're full of illegal drugs. It's time to get cleaned up. This makes me angry. This son of a bitch is so boring that I go outside and look for a release. I can deal with that. Who is he to tell me I have to straighten up? Well, Don, maybe you do. I guess that's up to me. He shook his head. Here's the thing, though. I know there's no family around to help you. I don't know if you can make decisions on your own behalf, and I'm not ready to make them on your behalf. I can't risk the responsibility. The tears were close again. Suddenly, my confidence was gone. He's right. I need help. My thoughts are scattered. No, it's emotion. I don't have thoughts. Damn it. I had to pull myself together. What decisions need to be made? I called your employer on Monday morning to let them know you were in the hospital. I also said that I was your ex-husband and had not been told the reason for your hospitalization, but I would relay to you as soon as I could that you should contact them. The hospital said that you need to spend some time in a treatment center to get over your addiction. By the way, I gave them an oath that I would not tell anyone about your medical information. They were able to tell me because I am still listed as your next of kin. And finally, we need to temporarily agree on custody of the boys. Sounds simple enough. It didn't sound simple. Not at all. I'm confused. I can't hold on to a single thought. Elaine, you've been, shall we say, out of sorts for some time. Are you sure you can act on your own behalf? Maybe your lawyer should act for you? You're right. I'd better make sure he's in agreement with what I want to do. But Don, at this point the boys are yours. I know you'll take care of them. I don't know how soon I'll recover, but can I ask you not to do anything permanent until then? Elaine, I never want a repeat of a call like the one I got from Tim. He's still traumatized. Hopefully now you're back on the right track and we can both give the boys the attention they need. Here's what I promise you. When I'm sure you've recovered, we'll come to a mutual agreement about the boys. That sounds good. You're a good man. I'm so sorry we ended up where we did because of me. Please tell the boys that I'm feeling better and I'll talk to them as soon as I can. Of course. Would you like my lawyer to contact you or your lawyer in the morning? I tried to show him that I needed his help, not additional legal hassle. Oh, let's start with me. I want him to know that we're going to make this as friendly as possible. Thanks, Don. That means a lot. I still love you, you know that. He looked at her as if he'd swallowed something wrong. Take care. I'm sure we'll be in touch. He turned and walked away. I decided to see if I could fall asleep. Next chapter. I woke up many times. People were in and out, drawing blood, asking if I was asleep, giving me pills. Hospitals are no place for a sick person. But morning came anyway. I was going to get through work. Henry advised me to entertain my boss. It would compromise him and give me a lawsuit if they tried to fire me. I called. He told me to take the time I needed. He transferred my call to Human Resources. They told me there that our insurance covered inpatient addiction treatment. They also said I have up to 42 days, including the days I missed while in the hospital, with full pay. After that, we will discuss whether or not payment will continue. I was able to call my attorney at 8:55. I knew he never comes in too early and doesn't schedule many cases until he sat at the coffee urn a couple times. We chatted and he said that in the short term there would be no problems with the kids. In the long term, Don may have problems and we will deal with them as they arise. I asked the doctor who they recommended for residential treatment, called them and was admitted there 3 days later. I tried to remember the last week. I had definitely lost my way. 6 months ago, I was a moderately unhappy wife and mother, too spoiled to think about what I needed to do to overcome myself. So, as a temporary solution, I found a guy who made me a whore. No doubt I had better options, but it's too late to talk about that now. September 16th. I checked into a treatment center. There were 2 large rooms, each with couches and a TV. These rooms were separated by a dining room. Several conference rooms and 14 bedrooms were in one of the 2 corridors. 12 of them were doubles, and the corner rooms had 3 beds each. I spent the next 28 days in the company of 29 new best friends. I think things were good enough here, but the immediate lesson for me was that I had to get clean and stay clean or I would have to be here a second time. Once was more than enough. The first major event of the first day was a group therapy session. 12 women were whining about how some trifling nonsense had caused them to become addicted to anything, and now they were sorry. People were asked if they wanted to speak, and one by one they did. Suddenly I felt obligated. My name is Lainey. Hi, Lainey, they replied. I don't want any of you to take this the wrong way, but I've been listening to your stories. At first, all I heard was blah, blah, blah. Life is hard and unfair. I'm a victim. I looked around. No one seemed to be showing any sympathy. Then it hit me. I wasn't listening to you. I was hearing my own voice through your stories. I had a good life. I decided I didn't and blew it all away. How could I have been so stupid? I looked around the room. The disapproval was gone, but most were shaking their heads as if to say, "This bitch is new, she'll learn." And I did. This place is a living hell. I'm about to scratch myself to death. They keep telling me withdrawal won't last that long. I figured out why. It won't last that long because I won't last that long. If I do get out of here, the first thing I'm going to do is find Henry and shove a dozen or so of his pills up his ass. I've been here over a week. What's going on? I should be on the road to recovery. An orderly came up to me. Ma'am, could you please come to the office? We have your attorney on the phone. These conversations are hard. I need the outside world to think I'm okay, but I'm not. I need to convey reason, but I don't feel reasonable. It's Elaine. Elaine, I have what I think is good news. Your ex-husband wants to minimize the impact on your children. He is offering to swap homes with you for a period of time. He is willing to provide an end date or leave the date open with the written understanding that when you are able to return to primary care for your sons, You can switch back. All I can do is not jump up and down and cheer. I don't want to take care of the little assholes, but that's not wise. Oh, I don't know. I'm so excited to be a mom again. Are you sure that's a good idea? Yes. You'll demonstrate good faith. Also, I don't recommend setting a specific date for the end of the relationship. You will reassure your ex, and it will build trust. When you are ready to return to your home, I'm sure he will be very reasonable. Wait a minute. I want to think this through. I want to sing Happy Days Are Here Again, but that would give me away. I wait another minute or so and give him my reasonable answer. Okay, you've represented me very well. I'll do what you say. Fine. I'll write it all up. All I need is your verbal agreement and he'll start moving out of his apartment and into yours. He said only clothes. All furnishings can stay where they are until you move into his current home. At that point, you can ask for anything you want and he will move it for you. Well, that was a big hit. Although, as I realized, I hadn't been here more than a week, it just seemed that long to me. I've been here for 3 days. How could it only be 3 days? Next chapter. I'm glad they don't give the inmates, or whatever they call us, cell phones. I'd call Henry and tell him what a bastard he is, and that his life won't be worth a dime when I get out. It's depressing. We're told not to have any romantic relationships for a year. They tell us that we won't be back to normal for a few years. We will always be vulnerable to becoming addicted again. The odds are great, and they're all against me. Maybe I should give up early. That's what I'm thinking now that it's been almost 2 weeks of my time here. I feel an emptiness inside. The staff tried to help me realize that the root of all my problems was my lifestyle choices. That may be at least partially true. But I think if I can get a couple pills and maybe a shot, it will help me clear my thoughts and then I can quit. I just need to hold out long enough to get to my new home, make some phone calls, and connect with the world. Luckily, I've asked to have my cell phone charged in my new bedroom. I'll be able to make a call right away. September 29th. It's a sad day. My roommate Gwen is graduating today. She's been wonderful. More than the counselors, she knows what I'm going through and helps me. But she worries me. She has been addicted to heroin for almost a decade and is still very weak. She's doing well. Maybe she'll pull through. Every day at lunch, someone spends their last meal with us. As is tradition, they say a few words about their time here and their hopes for the future. Gwen says she hopes she has a home to come back to. She plans to go to work for her brother and is confident in herself. She's upset, saying she's going to miss all of us very much. I haven't had a friend other than this white powder in more years than I can remember. She finally exhaled. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. I left the cafeteria and headed to my appointment with the counselor. Today was individual therapy. What do you think, Elaine? What kind of progress do you think you're making? I have no idea, and it scares the hell out of me. Elaine, that's to be expected. Your physical addiction is mostly behind you, but you have to develop new habits. I mean new habits. If you go back to the way things were before you got into trouble, you'll get into trouble again. I couldn't say that before. I didn't like my life. I didn't like myself. I tried to believe that my husband was boring and my kids were a disappointment. But it was about me. Wasn't it? That's a deep question. You'll have to answer it. Let me say this. Every man lives in an environment that he has created for himself. A man may see his environment as a palace or as a prison. You have to work at seeing the palace. What nonsense. No, not exactly like that. You were well-to-do and you lived in a prison. You can find plenty of people living in poverty who love their lives. Your attitude toward life will depend on whether you recover or not. I sat back and looked at her. Surely she must be right. I'd love to try to get Dawn back, but if I try, I'll see my life as it was. I have to find a different life, new habits for a new life. The boys are different now. I miss them. My maternal genes must remain intact. It's a big step. I've failed them. I put them in danger. Henry reappeared in front of me. He was going to bring a dozen guys to my house. I wasn't even upset because I was so happy. But then a terrible feeling came over me. I was trash. I fell at the bottom of the stairs, or down the stairs, who knows. Tim thought I was dead. He was right. In fact, I was dead. Elaine, you're getting a new roommate this afternoon. You should try to be for her what Gwen was for you. Oh, I'm not ready for that. Gwen wasn't ready for it either. This is part of your recovery. Take some of the responsibility. If she needs help, maybe you can help. If you can't, just ask one of the nurses. You'll start to feel better. October 12th. I heard my name called over the speakerphone. Come to conference room #3. I wondered what the talk would be about. I walked to the door to the room and one of the counselors told me that I had a visitor waiting. A very attractive young woman stood waiting for me. She extended her hand to me. Hi, my name is Grace. Grace was my first visitor, and it was time for me to leave. I don't know any Grace. Hi, I'm Lainey, but I think you know that. Do we know each other? No, I'm with your ex-husband. I hope this doesn't upset you. Strangely, it didn't upset me. No, I'm glad he and hopefully you are happy. We are happy. I want to tell you a story. It may be hard to believe, but I really want you to hear it. Oh, well, I might as well listen. It would still count towards getting out of here. I'd offer you a drink, but they monitor everything that goes into our mouths here. Please, let's have a seat. So, what's your story? I think the house you're moving into will seem like the most wonderful house you've ever lived in. Damn it. I wonder who these people are. All I want to do is get out of here. I pace back and forth, my mind now telling me to call Henry right away to get some temporary relief. But instead, the bitch pours a barrage of better homes and gardens shit on me. But I have to seem reasonable, or they might not let me go. Oh, how come? I said sweetly, not meaning a syllable. The last 2 tenants who lived in this house won the lottery. The second of them claimed that an alien was watching the tenants of the house. Don't look at me like I'm crazy. I didn't believe it either. But the story goes on. Grace, I'm sorry. I'm afraid of looking like I've lost my buttons. And that if I do, they'll keep me in this place. I really don't know how to respond to you. Elaine, I don't blame you. But Don moved into this house and he told me that his grief at losing you went away instantly. He was able to rebuild his life in a very short time. We talked about it a lot. I'm still not sure what the impact of the house will be, but maybe it will help you make a decision. Maybe what will help? People here claim to see little green monkeys. Now, someone on the outside is seeing little green men. Next, she's going to give me Dorothy's, the Wizard of Oz, ruby shoes. A while back, I suggested you move into this house. Don was furious. He was against you living in the house that had done him so much good. That hurt. Don doesn't want me to get better? Did I? She interrupted me. No, he was hurt so badly, first by your betrayal, and then by your youngest son finding you dead. Don thinks the house might have helped him. He was afraid that if you lived there, you would use the house to get him back. I asked him if the house helped him forget you. Why would it help you do the opposite? I'm sorry to be so blunt, but Tim calling him thinking you were dead was the last straw. He has no chance of reconciliation. It hurt to hear about Tim finding me. I almost made myself reconsider contacting Henry. I'd love to go back to my life before Henry. But new habits, new life. Wanting to go back to where we were will lead to failure. I have to accept that it's over. If he thinks this house has magical powers, why does he want me in it? Don wants to give your sons their mother back. That makes sense. Don wants me back with the boys. Why are you here? It was pissing me off. I don't know why I'm like this. Flighty. Elaine, here's what I've learned from the many conversations I've had with Don. He's not sure if the house has any influence, but he thinks it might. If you want my opinion, it's that belief that has allowed him to succeed. And you think that if I believe the house will help me, it will? That's exactly why I'm here. If the magic of the house is that its occupant believes the house will help, then I have to help you believe. Thank you. If you're interested, my room opens tomorrow afternoon. They can be so helpful. I have to be reasonable, damn it. Reasonable. Elaine, Don decided he wanted to find someone to share his life with on the day of your final divorce hearing. That night, June 14th, he went on a date and found me. A week later, we were in an exclusive relationship. I met your sons on the 4th of July. 5 months after he walked out your door, he proposed. We had known each other 77 days. We laugh that this is impossible. Then we wonder if it's because of the house. Then we wonder if it's because we believe it could be the house. Maybe it's just a fluke. But the most important thing for you is that maybe the same chance will fall to you. She turned and walked away. We both smiled. It was necessary. I guess neither of us wanted to smile. I'll be allowed to leave tomorrow. I'm in trouble. I'm happy to work hard at what I want, but my desires change 3 or 4 times a day. I want things to be like they used to be. Back then, I remember being bored and doing stupid things. Back then, I remember being interested in being an elite call girl. Back then, I remember that's what brought me here. I didn't want what I had when I had it. I'm afraid I'm going to repeat cycles. The problem is that my moods change. I really want what I want. I want it badly. Suddenly, there is a shift. Withdrawal? Maybe. My mood changes and my needs change. Even after a complete mood shift, I'm obsessed with getting what I want. It's just that what I want has completely changed. How do I survive? This ambiguity led me to some bad places. The best option for me seemed to be a safe prostitute and a good mother. What a laugh. October 13th. It was very nice of Don to provide a car and driver to take me to the house. The driver carried my bag to the door, opened it with the key he was given, put the bag inside, handed me the key, and wished me well. In my current state of mind, the first thing I had to do was to call Henry. I had to change this way of thinking. I can't have everything I want. It will lead to not having anything I want. There was a pleasant atmosphere in the house. I looked into the kitchen. There were fresh flowers on the table and a note lying on the table. I read the note. Elaine, welcome home. Please find your favorite in the refrigerator, Diet Dr. Pepper. You'll find your car in the garage and all your belongings in the bedroom. It was signed by the law office of my attorney. It's cold, but at least they were thinking of me. Who else could send me something? My sons are too young and Henry is not in the greeting card business. I opened a Dr. Pepper and took a sip from the bottle. I decided I wanted to see the house. It was a little cave-like, but it had some nice windows and overall it wasn't too bad. The bedrooms were great. Don had set aside 2 rooms for the boys. I knew they would love to be in those rooms. I decided to sit for a minute and watch TV. It wasn't that I wanted to watch anything. It was just that I was choosing what to watch. No housemates and no complicated voting system. I put my feet on the floor, and before I knew it, I was awake. It was already dark. I hadn't dozed or slept like this in I don't know how long. I made my way to the bedroom and found that my things had been thoughtfully organized into places. I found my nightgown, put it on, and got into bed. I fell asleep before my head even touched the pillow. When I woke up at 6:30 a.m., I felt the best I had felt in a while. I went to the kitchen and found coffee capsules for the coffee maker. I looked in the fridge, and there were English muffins and butter. I toasted one, ate it, and looked at the clock. 7:04, the boys get up early on Saturdays. Maybe I could say hello. Don, we exchanged greetings. The reason I called is, can I say hello to the boys? Sure. Go to their playroom and turn on the TV on the right. They'll show you FaceTime. Give me 2 minutes to brush my hair. Thank you so much. Well, for everything. The house is wonderful. 2 minutes. I ended the conversation. Next chapter? I sipped my coffee and thought about what an extraordinary morning it had been. It's amazing what feeling good can do to you. Perhaps my stay at the center had actually helped. Talking to the guys made me feel like I was waking up all over again. Maybe it was walking through the door of the house that made the difference. That can't be right, can it? I went to rehab. I'm doing everything right, and of course it made a difference. But I remember feeling different when I crossed the threshold. How do you walk through the door for things to change? My emotions and thoughts were running wild. This couldn't be happening. I thought about the conversation with my boys. They were bright and cheerful, and so was I. They were so excited and wanted to talk to me. They need me, and I need to pick myself up, not for my sake, for theirs. I was due to go back to work on Monday. I wonder if it will be another nuisance. Don went on. My feelings about this are the strangest. I know I left him, and I accept it. But why? He deserves better, but what about me? I have to find alternative support, or I'll end up with Henry again. And I need to fill a big hole in my relationship with the boys. They want it fixed, and I have to do everything I can to fix it right, and fix it right now. There are no other priorities. And then I got dressed and went to find the nearest grocery store. I walked up to the buffet and shook my head. Nothing worthy of food. The freezer was even worse. I went into notes on my phone and started making a grocery list. I wanted to treat the boys as soon as possible, and I needed to make their favorite foods. After groceries, I went back into the house and decided I wanted some ice water. I found a large glass and filled it up. I sat down in the chair and called Don on his cell phone. Hi, Elaine. 2 times in one day. Sorry, Don. I had such a good chat with the guys this morning. I'd like them to come and visit us next weekend. You might think it's too soon. I'd like you and Grace to come over today or tomorrow so you can see that I'm ready for them. If you decide to say no, I understand. But I'm asking you to give me a chance. The phone went silent, then even quieter. I was about to say his name when suddenly, I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting this. I don't know what to say. I think Grace and I are coming over this afternoon. Maybe around 5:30? Is that okay? Sure. Listen, Don, I know your fear. I really do. That's why I'm saying come over. I'd be happy to talk to both of you, together and separately. Ask me anything you want. I want the boys to be safe, and I'll keep them safe. If you don't agree, we'll wait until you do. Next chapter. I tried to make the house look like it was mine, and guests were welcome in it. The phone rang. Hello? Hey, doll, heard you got out of rehab. How about we get together? Damn, it's Henry. Good to hear your voice. Meeting up is great. I hoped I sounded sincere, even though I don't have the slightest desire to meet Henry. Oh, how I hope it's true. There's no time like the present. Oh, Henry, I can't. I have guests coming over in less than an hour. I'm just starting to come around. How about next week? Sure, next week. Where are you staying? As if I'm going to tell him that. Henry, I have to go. Let's talk next week. I disconnect. This changes everything. Henry wants to make sure he gets me back on track. He can't have me wandering around town as a citizen knowing about his prostitution, extortion, and other distractions. If I was placing bets, I'd bet he has a way to find me from this call. Next chapter. I opened the door. Grace, Don, so nice of you to come. Please come in. I brought snacks and offered them soft drinks, apologizing that it would be a while before I allowed alcohol in the house. We chatted for a while. They were trying to be polite and trying to figure out if I could safely host my sons. Don, I got a call less than an hour ago. I need to tell you about it. It means my request to shelter the boys is premature. I don't like that, Elaine. I wished he'd call me Laney, but that's a matter for another day. Neither do I. You're not going to like any of this story, but it's the truth, and I have to start being completely honest with you, or I'll never see my sons again. That's a wonderful offer, Elaine. I hope you mean it. I am serious. I'll live up to it. I'll tell you this. I was raised to believe that if I found a wonderful husband and had children, my life would be complete. I went to college to find the perfect man, not to educate myself. I found him, and you know what came of it. So I wasn't the perfect man? Don, sweet Don, of course you were perfect. There was only one bad piece to our puzzle, me. I had love, a family, and all the material possessions I wanted. I also had no self-esteem and felt bored. I found a man, Henry Martin, who offered prostitution, money. He called me this afternoon. As long as he's looking for me, it's not safe for the boys here. Don looked at me like I was someone he'd never seen before. Is that who you are? That's who I was. I'm still afraid I might be, but that's not who I am. I proceeded to tell him about being a call girl wife and how I was sure that calling Henry meant he could find me. We talked about restraining orders, and I told him that they work with people, not criminals like Henry. If I tried to ban him from seeing me, he'd just send someone else to take care of me. Grace was silent. She sat, almost hidden from my view, and Henry was between us. She seemed to be his support and didn't want to interfere. She leaned forward. What are you going to do? I smiled at her. Her question was legitimate. She cared. Thank you. That's so sweet. Don has found a good woman. It's just that the thing is, I have no idea. I have to assure Henry that I'm no longer free and no longer a threat. When I do, he'll stop calling and I'll let you know. We all looked at each other. There was a complete lack of calm on everyone's faces. Hoping that Henry would just walk away was as close to a false hope as one could get. There was no real alternative for honest, law-abiding people. There was nothing to say, and we said nothing. We chatted some more, agreed to keep in touch, and they left. October 16th. Wow. I don't know how many people try to go from normal wife/mother/worker to prostitute and back again. I'm willing to bet it's not that many. I lived as a normal person for decades and a few months as a prostitute. Why did all the remaining barbs and hooks in question come from those few months? That's not a real question, is it? No matter how long you've been doing things right, you can screw it up in moments, let alone months. I realized one sad truth. Just as quickly as you can fix things, getting back to normal takes time and a lot of effort. So far, all my efforts have been to get everything out of my body and the need for it out of my head. It took time for the former. I don't know how long it will take for the latter. Today is the first day back to work. I am an assistant to a group of engineers at a manufacturing firm. The company has a strict no fraternization policy. So naturally, Henry instructed me to seduce my boss at the first opportunity. Thus, I became his owner. He's a good man and smart. As soon as I pressed him, he realized that we had each other over the same barrel. Now I had to figure out how to tell him that I had turned over a new leaf. I walked through the door and saw my boss at his desk. I walked over to him. He saw me and immediately stood up. Laney, welcome back. It's so good to see you. Hi, Mark. It's good to be back. Laney, can we talk for a minute? About your return? Sure, I asked rather than said. He pointed to the conference room. Great. He needs to tell me he's still happy to see me. We walked into the conference room and he closed the door. Laney, things have changed in my life. I met a woman, and now we are in an exclusive relationship. Our relationship with you has to end. I hope you continue to be considerate. I blurted out a huge smile. Mark, congratulations. I'm happy for you and for me. I need to turn my life around too. I'm putting the last few months behind me. They never happened. In other words, there's no need to hide anything. You and I will remain the same employees and employers we've always been. Gee, truth be told, if Mark were still single and wanted to live a little, I'm sure he'd talk me into it. The problem is, he's 5 years younger than me. I'm just starting my journey into life, but I feel like there's no turning back. Everything I've done that doesn't fit with who I want to be has to go. I sat down at my desk and then my cell phone rang. It was Henry. Good morning, Henry. Hey, doll. You said to wait until this week. I couldn't wait any longer. When are we going to meet? Henry, I'll be honest. I've lost everything. I have to get some of it back. The most important thing in my life is my sons. I can't do what I did and get my sons back. No hard feelings, but we won't be dating. I'm hurt. The nasty bastard said, meeting doesn't mean doing something. It's just two old friends meeting. Two old friends. He liked me because I brought in a lot of positive cash flow. Well, maybe I could turn him off. That's nice. Give me a little time to come around, please. Let's not wait too long. His tone didn't sound like a threat, maybe a quarter of an inch. Henry, let me suggest the following. I'm going to change my life. In a few months, which one of us will know we've been dating? Let's not wait too long. Same tone. He shuts down. I could be doing everything right, and meeting Henry would throw everything off. I'd be on the run again. Running in the wrong direction. I'll never be able to go back. The question is whether he's testing me to see if I'll talk to anyone or whether he's planning to get me out of the general population, dead or alive. Next chapter. I headed home. Home had certainly become one. Here I was comforted. Here I felt safe. And at the same time, I was lonely. Too lonely. Boys would solve that problem, at least for the next few years, but that's impossible with Henry wandering around. Someone to have a cold drink with after work, and my bed every night were important too, but right now those were secondary. I decided I wanted to talk to Grace. We weren't friends yet, but she was the one who wanted me in the house. She must have a big, big heart. She had my man, and I don't feel guilty. I left my man, and of all the serious mistakes I've made, I think leaving him wasn't one of them. He's stability, and I want some swagger. He is unconditional love, and I want someone who will scold me when I step out of line. It's impossible not to love him, and maybe I'm crazy, but I think that's what led me to be so stupid. Don is the kind of man who would do anything I asked, if I asked. I didn't explain my needs, and he, in turn, didn't fulfill them. I dialed the number 1 on my speed dial. Hi, Elaine. How are you? Don, I need to talk to Grace. I wanted to talk to you first. She's shown that she cares about me, and I need a woman's point of view. I'll tell her to share everything with you. Do you mind if I talk to her? Sure. He said it like it wasn't worth thinking about. Grace, Elaine is on my phone. I heard him say, then he spoke into the phone again. She was in the other room. There she is. Elaine, what can I do? Grace, I have a big favor to ask of you. Maybe we can get together and talk about it. Sure? I'm sorry, but you have to admit, this is a little weird. Yeah, I know, but you're the one who made sure I got in. You're as close a friend as anyone I know. All my former friends have ended up on the wrong side of the law or wondering why I ran away from my husband. You know me and are on my side anyway. There was an awkward pause. I'm sorry. I'm not being very encouraging. Let me be frank. I'm on your side, and I'm afraid for you. It makes me fear for Don's boys, and they're hardly the most important people in my life. You did the right thing to call. You even anticipated the topic. I want to think through every possible course of action with Henry. He's not going to go gently into that sweet night. What's more, I'm pretty sure he wants to send me off into the darkness, either as a prostitute again or as a recently deceased prostitute. How bad is Henry? That's a good question, Grace. I think I can describe him. He has a friend from his past. This friend is in the drug trade. He supplies Henry without being part of his regular network. I think it saves them both money somehow, and they think it's safer that way. So Henry's alone. He makes his own decisions and is accountable to no one. Can we talk at your place? Sure. Why? Elaine, I don't want anything to do with Henry. Maybe it's too much cloak and dagger. But I can take an Uber and show up at your house in a wig. When can you show up? I'm having a bad week. How about Saturday morning? 9 in the morning, I'll make brunch. We disconnected. October 28th. I had coffee brewed, a Denver omelet made, and sliced fresh fruit in a bowl. At 9 o'clock, an unmarked car pulled up to the driveway, from which a short-cropped brunette in baggy clothes got out. A minute later, the doorbell rang. I decided it looked seasonal and said, "Trick or treat." I wish I had a mask or a cat costume or something. I feel out of place when I meet you as myself. Welcome, Grace laughed. You want to know what Dawn said? What if Henry were to visit us right now? What good would all this do? He wouldn't be able to get to the two of us fast enough to avoid being identified in a 911 call. That's what I said too. Well, here I am. What's on your mind? Let's sit around for a while, then fruit and an omelet. We sat down on the couch. Henry called twice this week. Both calls were pretty much the same. He wants us to meet. I refuse. He says he's disappointed, which is very little like a threat. Tell me, what do you think he wants? I think he wants me back and will continue to intimidate me until I get so frustrated that I need drugs again. Do you think he'll try to hurt you if you don't come back? Grace's face reflected genuine concern. That's just a guess. I think he'll push until he wins. If I try to stop him, he'll see me as a threat and start coming after me. You can't win at that rate. That's why I wanted to talk to you. I'm trying to find a way that doesn't end with me deciding he's keeping the boys away from me anyway. I might as well do what he wants. Of course he'll give in. Grace, I wish it was hard for him to keep up the pressure, but it's only a 2-minute phone call, once or twice a week. So it's psychology. If you're timid, he'll keep the pressure on. If you're aggressive, he'll get macho. Keep your cool. I think your chance is to stay calm and hope he loses interest. Let's get something to eat. Maybe the food will give us something to think about. I got up to make an omelet. We ate and talked and laughed, but we had no new ideas. Nov 7. I was keeping my cool when Henry called. He kept calling. These calls were exhausting me. Most of all, I was burdened by the fact that it was all my fault. I was looking for Henry. It's one thing to know what's going on. It's harder to live it and not give up. I was close to depression. My phone rang. It was Grace. Grace, oh my God, I'm so glad you called. I think you'll be more than glad when we're done. That sounds wonderful. What happened? I had lunch with a colleague of mine from the drug lab today. He was all worried because he had to let a key staff member go. I don't know much about this group. It's been small for years but has grown in the last year or so, he said. Unfortunately, substance abuse is something I know a lot about. That's true. But as it turns out, it's not so unfortunate. It would have been nice. I've been sitting here close to despondency over being hooked on this by choice. How could it possibly be good? Our company is researching drugs that can help end addiction. But we think it won't just be a prescription. It's going to take behavior change, and they've brought in 3 different people from the past to develop strategies to help addicts. The problem is that all 3 came back and started using again. He had to fire each of them. I'd love to be involved in a project like that. You've already been interviewed. All you have to do is call and arrange it. How much is the pay there? Do you know? I know. You have to start at Tech 8, which is a minimum of $96,000 a year. If you accept, they'll pay for you to get a master's degree, and your salary will go up another 20%, and then you'll have plenty of opportunities. Wow, in a couple years, I'll be making almost double what I'm making now. Who do I call? She gave me all the details and promised me that I wouldn't back down. If I could convince them of that, I'd be hired. What would that mean for Henry? I'm afraid he'd take it as a way out. I don't think he'd like that. Another nuisance is if the company wants me to contact consumers I know, many of whom get their product through Henry. He certainly won't tolerate that. But it's a step. Henry won't know I'm changing jobs, and I can keep my word here not to tell people where I've gone. Maybe Henry will lose track of me. Maybe the pigs will fly. November 17th. Just finished the first week of my new job. It's a dream come true. There's no evidence or way to prove my house had anything to do with it yet, but the circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. There's a downside. Henry must be some kind of psychic. He called on Monday and could tell from my voice that something had changed. He asked what, and I said nothing. He dusted me off that I had changed jobs, and when I didn't tell him what the new job was, he got suspicious. I turned into the apartment complex where I live a little after 5 p.m. It was getting close to sunset. I was ready to swear I saw a car following me, but there was nothing when I turned onto my street and then into my driveway. I was in the house. I made sure all the doors were locked with 2 locks and all the windows were closed and locked. I have an alarm system that can be set for when I am home. I turned it on. I looked in the refrigerator and found a couple of groceries for stuffing. I ate, drank a Dr. Pepper, and thought about it. After being home for over an hour, I looked outside. It was dark. The moon was nowhere to be seen. I turned on the outdoor lights and wished I had one. Something's wrong. I could feel it. I turned off all the lights in the house. I sat on the island between the kitchen and the family room and looked out the back windows. I could sort of see through them. I wondered if that was enough. Bright lights appeared on both sides and in the back of my yard. I heard screams, then more screams. Then all hell broke loose. It was like gunshots, lots of gunshots. It was over in a minute. The lights were moving fast toward the house. I called 911. This is 911. State the nature of your emergency. People are firing guns in my backyard. Henry Martin is trying to kill me. What is your address? I gave the address, and there was a pause that lasted no more than 20 seconds. The operator called back. The police are on the scene. They confirmed that shots rang out. They have stopped the threat. Please stay inside the house. They're making sure the shooter was alone. Where did the police come from? They responded to your earlier 911 call. I didn't call again. Next chapter. If you've ever spent any time sitting on a tile floor in total darkness, you know that time passes slowly. The doorbell rang. I looked at my phone. 12:13 a.m. I went to the front door and shouted through it, "Who's there?" The police, ma'am. We're going to take a step back and look out the window to make sure it's us. I did just that. There were 4 uniformed police officers. There was a large dog hanging on a leash, sniffing the neighborhood. The dog's trainer was out of uniform. Farther down the street were at least 3 police cars with blinkers. I decided I could open the door. I turned on all the lights I could reach from the foyer and opened the door. Are you under duress? No. You seem to have taken care of that. Please come in. All 4 men entered with guns in their hands. They asked permission to make sure I was alone, and I readily agreed. A couple minutes later, they returned to the family room, which was now cheerfully lit. Ma'am, we were investigating a traffic accident a block and a half from here. The neighbors who live in your backyard saw our lights and started looking around. When they looked out the back window, you turned on the outside lights, and they saw an armed man. They called 911. We approached your yard from 3 directions, shined our flashlights on the man in the hoodie, and demanded that he drop his weapon. He decided to turn around and shoot toward the back of your property. He was fatally wounded. After that, you called 911 and said that Henry Martin was trying to kill you. May I ask why the late Mr. Martin wanted to kill you? I don't know exactly, but I can give you a good idea. About a year ago, I was looking for a wilder life. I found Henry and he introduced me to it all. He became my supplier. At the end of that summer, I started getting out. I went through a rehab program and got clean by mid-October. Since I got out of rehab, Henry has called me a couple times a week trying to get me back into it all. Why today specifically? What's changed? That's the one I'm not sure about. I started a new job on Monday. I work in a lab where I'm looking for ways to help addicts kick their addictions. but I refuse to tell Henry where I work or what I do. Do you think he found out? I think tonight he said he found out, but that's just a guess. We didn't talk again. I gave them my phone number and permission to look at my calls since leaving rehab. I told them they would find many calls to Dawn and Grace and explained the relationship. They assured me that if they found no evidence that I was doing drugs over the phone, I would not hear from them again. Nov 18. I got up at 6:30, still tired, but I had things to do. I drank 2 cups of coffee and then called Grace. Hi, Elaine. Early for Saturday, she said, but cheerfully. I wanted to get in touch with you before the police did. The police? She showed genuine concern. They were here last night. Henry tried to break into the house with a gun. They shot him dead. And you're okay? Really? Grace, it was a miracle. Or the house. The police were investigating an accident a block from my house. My neighbors looked outside just as I turned on the outside lights. They saw Henry with a gun in his hands and called 911. The cops came running to the scene. Henry must have panicked and shot them. His last mistake in life. A man is dead, and all I can say is, great. I laughed with her. The main reason for my call is that I know you're planning to spend Thanksgiving with the 4 of you. Can we come here? The 4 of us? The 5 of us? I'll check with Dawn, but I think so. We were just talking about it last night. A great divorce is when the exes learn to be friends, and the kids benefit from that maturity. Dawn's not up yet. I'll give him a minute and we'll call you back. We have things to do. Who would have believed it? So little time and so much change. Part 3. Face it, brother. There's more to your victory than you're hiding. I was talking to my half-brother, Walter Bicknell. He was suddenly a rich man, and it pissed me off. Our mother was, well, I guess you'd say a whore. She was married to Walt's father, who was a real backwoods man. But she fell in love with my father, an athletic, handsome, and somewhat lazy womanizer. Walt is one of my 4 half-siblings, with 4 different mothers. Dad was better at getting women in the family than connecting with them in the family. So for most of my childhood, my mom raised me and my older brother alone. Fortunately, Walt's father, though he never spoke to his ex again, took pity on her and helped as much as he could financially. Walt is 8 years older than me. When he turned 18, he went to college and my mom became quite poor. She did her best, trying to work and find another husband. Unfortunately, she found a few guys more like my dad than Walt. I grew up hating the institution of marriage. They say if you grow up in an abusive environment, you are likely to become an abusive person. As much as I hate to admit it, I'm just like my father. I use my looks and natural charm to seduce women, preferably married women. You'd think I'd learned. Some husbands just divorce their wives, while others seek revenge and then divorce their wives. More than once I have had to leave the cities to escape the wrath of an angry husband. But I digress. Brother Walt recently won the lottery in his state. He's had the money for a long time. He came home and suddenly Mom has a home and a level of security she never thought she'd have and thought she didn't deserve. And me? On the other hand, I know I deserve it. That's why I moved back, to help my mom out too. Sure, I have no money, no skills, no real interests, but I'm staying with Mom to help out no matter what. Walt, you know I'm going to hound you until you quit, so quit. Jim, that's me, Jim Snyder, by the way. I'll tell you, but I don't know if you should believe it. Hell, I'm not sure I believe it myself. He sat for a bit, apparently trying to decide how to tell his story. Let me start with this. One day, I picked up a copy of the local newspaper. I don't know why, I never pick up a newspaper or read printed news for that matter. I get all my information online. He looked at me and continued. I opened the paper, and the article that caught my eye was about some guy who won his prize in a lottery, and his picture was printed in the paper. It wasn't that big a prize, but I still thought, lucky bastard. So some guy won a prize, so what? Get on with it. Walt mistook my question for interest. I don't care about his story. I want to know how to win the lottery. Jim, stop being such an ass. I don't need to tell you anything. You're pissing me off just by being here, now that I bought Mom a nice house. Where were you when she was living in that shitty apartment? Well, I guess I better tone it down. Sorry. When you're right, you're right. Please continue. I put the paper down and started heading back to work. At lunchtime, I went for a walk. Something I've never done either. I'll be damned if I didn't run nose to nose with the lottery winner I saw in the paper. I told him I'd just seen his picture. He was a lucky guy. Walt paused again. Jim, he looked at me and said, You don't know the half of it. He told me. He paused, looked at me, pondering what he was going to say, then began again. Briefly, he told me it was all about the house he was renting. The house was the reason he won the lottery. The house was the reason. I see. I tried to look serious, but I knew there was sarcasm in my words. Just as I thought, screw you, Jim. Believe it, don't believe it. He convinced me that the house was the reason we met. It made me move into this house, and here I am. Well, there must be more to the story. Why do I get into these holes? Starting a conversation, telling me what I need, and then screwing it up. You got it right. And I'm not wasting my breath telling you. I'd forgotten what an absolute asshole you are. You snuck in here by taking advantage of Mom and tricked her into making me give you money. You really have no bottom. He smiled wickedly and said, Renting this house was the reason the other guy won. It's the reason I won. That's what you're aiming for. You're not going to get any of that from me. I miss the good old days when missing you was my privilege. I'm out of here. Walt walked out, got into his new Porsche, and was gone in a flash. Damn, I probably could have done better. What now? Like his father, Walt is a down-to-earth, staid, hard-working guy who never approved of my lifestyle. I wouldn't see him again. Probably never again. I waited until my mom got home and we chatted for a while. When I decided the moment was right, I asked, Mom, do you have Walt's old address from before he won the lottery? As much as I loved my brother, I didn't think of him between his 18th birthday and winning the lottery. She had the address and she gave it to me. Mom wanted to know where Walt was, so I lied to her. Told her he had an appointment and would be back tomorrow. I don't really know when he'll be back, but it was a safe lie. One way or another, I'm going to leave. I spent the night with my mom, one more time. In the morning, I said goodbye to her, told her to tell Walt that it was good to see him again, and set off to find my destiny. Next chapter. The journey took about 1,000 miles. Mom talked Walt into giving me $100,000 for a new business. Walt knew that the new business and I would go together like oil and water, but he loved Mom. Bless his heart. I had time to think. The house brings in lottery winnings. And that would be because? You know, time isn't much help in finding an answer to a question like that. I drove a little over 300 miles, stopping to pee, eat, and refuel. How can a house pick a lottery winner? Geez, I really messed this up. I know it's no use calling Walt. He has this annoying practical trait. If it was important for me to know, why didn't I listen when he wanted to share? And since I didn't listen then, why would he get involved again? Damn. Walt said he'd rented the house. I guess my move is to rent it, and maybe it will become clear how the house will help. Sounds like a plan. I drove another 350 miles and stopped for the night. Next chapter. If I were to call the owner and tell him I wanted to rent the house, I figured it would be a good idea to actually see it. I entered the address into the GPS and arrived at the location a little after 1 p.m. The neighborhood was unremarkable, right in the heart of the middle class. However, this house was undergoing major renovations. Notably, most of the backyard was enclosed by a tall wooden fence, no doubt a pool fence. The crew was still working on the fence. I pulled over, got out of the car, and caught the eye of one of the workers. Wow, nice job. I apologize, but it seems like a lot for this neighborhood. I guess so. You need to talk to the boss. He looked over his shoulder and called out, Charlie. The gate opened and Charlie apparently walked through it. The worker said, I'm interested in the project. Charlie looked at me. Are you interested in the pool? You know, I probably am. I just thought it was too much for our neighborhood. Might as well have said I was a local. That's what I thought too. But this is an unusual deal. The guy who owns the house is renting it to his ex-wife. They have 2 sons. The father wants his kids to have a pool. Apparently his house already has one. So he asked me to build a pool for his boys. We chatted for a while and my plan changed. Obviously, good old dad wasn't going to throw his sons out on the street so I could win the lottery. Now I just had to hope my ex-wife didn't turn out to be a real loser and bargain her way into the house. With any luck, I'd keep my rent down and get the lottery winnings before I moved to a more favorable environment. I needed an entrance. Somehow knocking on the door and saying I want to meet you, move in with you, win the lottery, and then move on with my life seemed a bit rude. I watched the house for a few weeks. It wasn't easy. The landlady had her own daily routine, and she never deviated from it. She took the kids to school and left for work. Another woman, who I realized was Dad's new girlfriend, would bring them home, either alone or with Dad, and wait for Mom to come home. She never went out. No one ever came over to see her. She was a devoted mom, period. It seems the ex and his new landlady visited the house occasionally, but no more than that. Maybe the entrance was through the landlord. I did some checking. The house belonged to Don Wilson, owner of Responsive Reality. My way in through the front door of the house was through the ex-husband of the current tenant. How screwed up. That took another 6 weeks. During that time, I got to know Don, convinced him that I was new in town and looking for a nice house from which I could run my business. We looked at a few houses, and I told him I was lonely. My wife had cheated on me, and I had decided to divorce her and move to another city. We got to know each other pretty well. Well, I knew him, and he knew who I was pretending to be. One day, he told me he had someone I should meet. I couldn't help but greet him. Next chapter. I knocked on the door. Don answered it. Jim, it's good to see you. Lainey. A minute later, Lainey walked in. An attractive woman, no doubt. We were introduced to each other, and she offered me a soft drink. A damn soft drink? Not only does she live like a nun, but she drinks like a nun. Oh, great, sure, anything diet will do. I said this with a slight enthusiasm that pleased me. I still have it. We'll have burgers on the grill. I'm still getting everything ready. Let me help, I said with my brightest smile. Sure, if you want. I love doing this. It's been a while. It'll be fun. Fun as hell. But you have to sacrifice something if you want to win the big money. When we got to the kitchen, I met Grace, Dawn's other half. I was amazed at how well she and Lainey got along. The sliding glass door was open and we could hear the boys splashing in the pool. Lainey told me that she was working on a project to develop medications and behavioral changes that would allow people to break addictions. I had to say, she was energized to get to work. Grace was some kind of genius. She had about a dozen college degrees. But even after she explained her work, I didn't understand anything. I don't know where Don was most of the time. I think he preferred to be outside with the boys. All in all, it was a great evening. Although I find it easier to seduce with vodka than Dr. Pepper. But you can't have everything. Toward the end of the evening, I took the opportunity to leave Lainey alone and asked if she wanted to go out with me. She readily agreed, saying that I would be her first date since her divorce. The date went well and evolved into several others. On the 4th, she got serious at dinner. Jim, we're doing well. I'd like to take our relationship a little further. I, of course, did my best to take it further, but was rebuffed. Well, you know that would give me pleasure. But you should know something about me. I was unhappily married to Don. I got married and got involved with a man who used me as a call girl. So that's why you never drink. She looked at me like it was important to you. Well, yeah. It's gotten me into some bad places. But if we're going to be more, I want you to know I have a past. I almost blabbed about the past I like, but thankfully changed my mind. Instead, the past is the past. We have a future. She frowned slightly. I hope so, but my sons are very important to me, and you don't even know their names. And I would have called her out for that, but she was right. I know one of them is named Tim, or maybe Tom. Well, shit. Better distract myself. The boys always stay with their dad when we go somewhere. If you want us to get to know each other better, let's spend time with them at your house. That lifted her spirits. We left dinner without dessert and went back to her house. I had never had a better time. She just wore me out. That's how our affair began. Trying to figure out how a house can help you win the lottery is a daunting task. What am I supposed to do? Stare at the wall and ask? I was glad she told me that her boys were very important. Who would have thought? I recognized their names, John and Tim, and tried my best to take an interest in them. They're little nerds, of course, but I think I was fooling them. As time went on, my life became a living hell. It was like a black and white TV show from the 50s. There we were in the house, enjoying life as two petulant little chumps and looking forward to tomorrow. All I can say is that my lottery prize should be a big one. One afternoon, 6 numbers popped into my head. Blue 4, 18, and 21, and gold 6, 7, and 24. It was strange. It was like I was looking at a picture of a lottery ticket. There's a freaking lottery in this state, 3 draws and 2 colors, blue and gold. The lottery is described in part 1, but you don't need to know the details. I got up to go and buy a ticket. The boys were all annoyed. Our game would be ruined if I left in the middle. It was like I didn't care. I left and bought a ticket for this Friday and Saturday's draws. Next chapter. When I got back, all hell broke loose. Lainey told me that it wasn't going to work out. First of all, the boys hated me. They sensed my insincerity. I started telling her about Walter and the lottery, and I pulled the ticket out of my shirt pocket. I decided to hell with it. I stuffed the ticket back in my pocket and left. The house gave me the numbers, and I didn't need any more of the Leave It to Beaver stuff. I walked out, and Lainey slammed the door behind me. She was crying. That's what women do at the end of a relationship with me. I got in my car and drove towards my apartment. When I got over my anger, I thought, life is good. I reached into my shirt pocket, but damn it, there was no lottery ticket. I must have missed putting it in my pocket at her place. I turned around and rushed back to her house. She was gone. Probably gone to cry on Grace's shoulder. I peeked out the living room window and saw the lottery ticket on the floor. I had to get it. I looked around. All the doors and windows were locked. But she never locks the sliding door leading to the pool. A tall fence obstructs the entrance, making it almost an interior room of the house. If I could go back there, I'd get in and out with a ticket. It was already dark, and no one would see me. Lainey always put in an alarm system, so the only way into the house was through the sliding door. It wasn't wired for security. There was a maple tree in the front yard. I could climb it. From its limbs, I could climb to the roof. A plan formed. I climbed to the roof. The slope was surprisingly steep. I guess it was one thing to look up at it, but another to climb it in the late twilight. I got to the top of the roof and started down the back side. I've lost my footing, damn it. I'm sliding unstoppably down. Luckily, there's a large lantern there, illuminating the pool. I grabbed it as I was sliding off the edge of the roof. Shit. It's gone. The fall is only 8 feet. I'll survive it. Transition to black. Epilogue. From Elaine's point of view, I was sad. More than sad when I thought about it. I took the boys and drove over to Dawn's. Grace and I talked for a while, and I was relieved. Finding a new love for the first time happened to them too, but it had to be rare. We put the boys to bed, and I decided I was tired. I got home around 11 o'clock. The house was dark. I thought I had left the pool light on, but it was too late. I'll look in the morning. The boys had left their games in the living room. I gathered everything up, stuck it in a box, and put it on the table, and went to bed. I got up at 6:30 as always and made a cup of coffee. I looked toward the pool. There was a man lying there with a flashlight in his hand. It looked like he was dead. I called 911. Next chapter. That day was a mess. The dead man's name was Jim. Police determined that he had climbed a tree and tried to climb onto the roof. They determined from the broken shingles that he slid off the roof and grabbed onto a lantern. What happened next was a bizarre story. Even though the installation was brand new, the light fixture had simply broken off. The surveillance camera showed Jim falling, desperately holding onto the light fixture with both hands. He sprawled, his feet caught in a large puddle from the pool. There was a flash. Apparently, there was a short circuit in the light fixture, and Jim was electrocuted. The police said that the simultaneous occurrence of all of these events was almost impossible. They wanted to know why Jim would want to break into my house if we had just broken up. I had no idea. At the end of the investigation, the cops left, saying they would notify Jim's next of kin. I never heard from them again. On Saturday, Dawn and Grace arrived. I was glad to see them. Walter Bicknell called me last night. Dawn looked at me as if that was supposed to mean something to me. I'm sorry. Am I supposed to know that name? Turns out you should. Walt was a tenant before me who won the lottery. He has a half-brother, Jim Snyder. Walt told me his brother was a worthless son of a bitch. He always had some kind of agenda. The latest one, as it turned out, was to come to the house where Walt picked his winning ticket and find a way to win himself. Jim was buying lottery tickets? I remembered the night he interrupted the game to go get a ticket. I walked over to the game box, opened it, and found a ticket for tonight's drawing. He actually bought a ticket. Should we call Walt and give it to him? I asked, hoping Dawn would say no. Walt said that after his last visit, Mom completely disowned his half-brother. They're both done with him and don't even want what's left in his checking account. They've asked for that money to bury him with. I thought for a moment. Dawn, Grace, if you think about it, Walter Bicknell brought us all together. I suggest we split this ticket. And then I started laughing uncontrollably. Grace asked, What happened, Lainey? I just made a big deal out of giving away some possibly useless ticket. Dawn looked at his watch. The drawing's in 20 minutes. I guess we'll find out soon enough. You wouldn't believe the suspense. First, they announced yesterday's blue winners, 2, 4, 15, 18, 20, and 21. I was over the moon. Dawn told me to calm down. They were to draw the gold numbers. We waited. They drew them out, 6, 7, 9, 12, 14, and 24. I started jumping around. We had all 6 numbers. Dawn told me to wait because there was one more drawing and our chances were still slim. The boys from their playroom came into the room. They wanted to know what all the noise was about. So there we were, a strange group. 2 boys, their mother, stepmother, and father, all pulling the 6 numbers that were to be drawn. They started. Blue 18, blue 4, gold 24, gold 7, blue 21. I jumped up and so did Tim. We cheered. There was only one left. Our win was guaranteed. Dawn warned us, listen to what they say. There are 7 numbers left. Our odds are 1 in 7. Bummer. The woman on TV said that at that point there were 15 tickets with 5 numbers on them. Each was promised $10,000. If the blue or gold number 12 came up, there would be no big winner this week. With any other number, the winner or winners would receive the biggest prize in history, $42 billion. She asked her partner to push the button. He pressed it. The number was gold. He took it out of the machine and spun it around in front of the camera. 6. The end. If you haven't watched the first part of this video, the link will be in the description. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.